How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? I'm coming at you with yet another silent impression video. This is just a first look on what my first impression is of playing the game. I just recently picked this one up, I believe 4 days ago, starting today, and I've been enjoying it, so let's go ahead and just go right into it here. So what is Soul Worker? And my answer to that is that it's a free-to-play hack-and-slash style beat-em-up RPG MMO game with an obvious anime art style to it. The game is also instanced, which means that your experience will mostly be running dungeons or levels in the game that are either systematic or procedurally generated, which by definition is still systematic, but yeah, you get what I mean here. The point that I'm trying to make is that it's not a free-roaming RPG MMO at all. The town operates as a hub that you use to run dungeons. This game gave me a very nostalgic feeling of another free-to-play RPG MMO from Nexon that was called Vindictus, a game that has claimed far more of my time than I am fucking prepared to admit. Now, while the instance system and lack of freedom in this game might make things a little bit of a complete turnoff for you, remember that Soul Worker doesn't place its focus on it. There are three main selling points in the game that I think is pretty well done, honestly, that would attract a new player's interest. Number one is the clear anime theme that I had mentioned earlier in the video. The art is nice and clearly is aimed at the obvious demographic of anime fans. The second selling point is the combat system, and many people would easily argue that this is the most important feature about the game. The combat feels great and satisfying, while also providing a leveling system and gear-based progression to the game. Finally, there's the story portion of the game that is obviously something they put a fair amount of focus on. This is mostly present in the characters themselves, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I feel that I should mention that this game presents the player to choose from a list of heroes to play as, which all have established stories in the lore of the game, rather than the player being able to create a hero from scratch. There's a good and a bad to this design, and I'll go into that later on, once again. We're going to talk about the gameplay first. A good game should always focus on its gameplay first, if it's going to succeed, frankly. A killer Nobel Prize-winning storytelling experience means very little if the game itself is fucking trash to play, I'm sorry. Lucky for us, however, Soul Worker didn't disappoint its father by tossing out all good gameplay decisions in lieu of a good story. The game at this point has 7 playable characters, and each character has a different weapon and playstyle attuned to them. There's a reason for this in the lore of the universe, but mechanically I have nothing else to give here. Essentially, each character has their own basic attack combo, a secondary right-click attack, and a number of active skills to unlock throughout the game by leveling up. Experience, of course, is being obtained by, well, playing the fucking game. Typically, each dungeon in the game should have a boss at the end of it that you work towards after progressing through the instance by defeating a number of other trash mobs. There's a small amount of collectibles and chests you may encounter here and there, but the general focus is the hack-and-slash bit. As you've likely been seeing in the background, you have a health and a resource bar. Skills obviously drain your resource bar, while basic attacks do not. You also have a dodge button mapped to the shift key, which is no different from an iframe animation in any fighter-type game that exists. For anyone unaware of what the fuck that I'm talking about here, iframes are basically, or literally rather, invulnerability or invincibility frames. It means that the entire animation or a portion of it makes your character completely immune to taking damage, which allows you to effectively bob and weave your ass through enemy attacks. It's like a fucking roll in Dark Souls, that's exactly what it is. My point is that the game rewards good timing and incentivizes trying to master your character's animations to utilize them better. There's even a ranking system at the end of a battle that rates things like clear time, enemies killed, etc. Think like Devil May Cry. It's easy to learn, but more difficult to master. More importantly, even if the enemies just objectively do far more damage to me than I do to them, failure and mistakes feel like they're my fault, not so much the game being janky. Now that I went over the combat, let's talk about the story part that I mentioned earlier involving the characters. So, like I said, there are 7 heroes or characters that are in the game. I'll jump into the ugly parts first because this game by far has the most pitiful fucking character creation screen I have ever had the misfortune to witness. To start, you barely get a concept of what your character can even do in Soul Worker without the aid of outside sources like YouTube class guides. You can preview what your skills look like, the animations that is, but there's no information about it. There's no grids or graphs or even stats that roughly gauge your character's strengths and weaknesses aside from a meter called controls or some bullshit like that. I assume it means how easy the character is to control, but the game, once again, is not clear about what the fuck they mean here. The final bit is just a slight amount of backstory, and if you ask me, they can cut this part out entirely because you get the backstory of your character when you start the game. Now for the part that will make a lot of people turn away in disgust. You can't modify your appearance worth a damn in Soul Worker. The options that you see on the screen here are literally it. There aren't any extra eye or hair colors that you can scroll over to. You only have 3 hairstyles, 3 eye colors, 3 hair colors, and 4 outfit colors, and that's it. And in the case of Chi Aruella, the newest character, you can't even change the hairstyle. This is where the free-to-play aspect starts to kick in, though, because the shop sells various hairstyles and colors in the premium shop. I'll get into more detail on my final opinions about this one. Now that we have the ugly part taken care of, let's actually summarize the fucking story, eh? The 7 characters that I have now mentioned for the 3rd time are what are called Soul Workers, which is clearly what the game was named after. There are more detailed facets to what I'm about to say, but TLDR, a Soul Worker is basically just a very powerful being in the game world that is able to confront the enemies of humankind known as the Soul Dregs with a frighteningly powerful level of efficiency. Each Soul Worker carries around a weapon which is a physical manifestation of what is called their Soul Force. A power that is fueled by some kind of, previous trauma, strong feelings, or values that define the actual character. As a couple of examples I can throw at you, Lily Bloomerchen is one of the characters in the game who is a scythe hero whose soul force is powered by her mental instability, which was caused by watching a soul dreg ruthlessly consume her own brother right in front of her own eyes. Iris Yuma wields an enormous hammer soul, annihilating her enemies with sheer force and rage, fueled by her anger towards the world she is now forced to exist in. My favorite character by far at the moment is definitely Chi Aruella, the new Catgirl Katana character who is the consciousness of a house cat named Chi, in the body of a human named Aruella who wants to care of her. After the Soul Dregs kill her assumed to be caretaker, she fuses with Aruella's body and forever strives to protect others, while also despising Soul Dregs, even though she doesn't really remember why that is. The character tropes established here aren't exactly ingenious or unique in concept, but that's kind of just how anime is. This is a stylistic choice that is about its over-exaggeration and its tropes that anybody who's seen enough of anime can very easily relate to. The game is less of an experience that you insert yourself into and more of an experience in which you choose your favorite character, which will likely be your desired waifu or husbando character. That's kind of just how the game is. So, this being said, what are my thoughts about the game? Well, let's go ahead and just compile a pros and cons list. And we're going to start with the pros because there are honestly a lot more pros than I have cons. Or actually, I think it's about even at this point. I went back over the list after I wrote it down. First and foremost, the combat feels good, it feels rewarding, and it feels competitive, in that I'm constantly trying to fine-tune my strategy and technique so that I don't have any downtime, or at least so that I'm not just spamming the left click. On top of this, the progression is just very easy to get addicted to for any RPG game enthusiasts out there. Another pro for Soul Worker is the detail in between the characters. Not only are the characters at least somewhat relatable, but the game actually gives you noticeably different dialogue depending on what character you use. No, I'm not just talking about the hero saying something differently during dialogue events that is, defined on the character that you're playing as, but the cutscene itself actually rolls out differently. I made it to Candace City as Stella Unibel, for example, which is the youngest of the characters in basically this game's goth lolly. And the first set of dialogue with the old man changes to where he tells Stella multiple times to just be quiet and listen to the adults whenever she gets pushy, which is a complete contrast to when you're going through this area with Aruella, or Chi Aruella, rather. My last pro is less important and deals with this game's business model, from what I see at the base level at least. I could be entirely wrong on this by making it a positive point, so take this with a grain of salt. The thing that I'm talking about specifically is how this game has a rather impressive selection of outfits, cosmetic items, and other stylistic features that you can purchase with actual cash for your characters. I believe the premium shop offered 128 different outfits across 7 characters, which is really impressive considering that Soulworker has only been released for a little over a year. It released February of 2018. Vindictus, a very easy to compare game right here, has been around for almost a decade. It came out in 2010, and I don't think that game has even close to 128 outfitters across its 15 different characters, over double characters. Oh, does it now?
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, you heard it right there, ladies and gentlemen. So, according to Chelsea behind me, she disagrees that Vindictus has less outfits. At the very least, it has equal. So, even still, it's been, it's still been a long time since Vindictus has been released, so it's accrued these outfits over time, and there's a lot of premium ones that you can't just straight buy, necessarily. Not only that, but the cosmetic outfits in Soulworker will cost you 9 times out of 10 almost $1,500 in currency. $20 will net you about $2,600 in currency, which means that, based off of percentage, you're paying about $12 per outfit in Soulworker, and for anyone who's unfamiliar with free-to-play MMO games, $12 is actually a really generous offer as far as cosmetic outfits go. Typically, I would say that you can buy an outfit in a free-to-play game in anywhere around the $20 to $30 range. I'd say that that's about accurate, right, Chelsea? $20 to $30 in most free-to-play games.
Yeah, if you talk about games that have it on the lower end of the spectrum, some other games can have it as high as 40 to 50.
Yeah, exactly. Aura Kingdom, I remember actually being in definitely the 40s to 50 range, absolutely for getting an outfit for just straight buying it rather than going into a gacha event. Black Desert Online, for example, offers them for, I believe, $15 to $30, depending on if the outfit is brand new or if it's a more generic one for your characters. Usually the Black Desert outfit is a little over 2,000 pearls, so yeah, over $20, just over it.
It also depends based on if you have your awakening weapon in the outfit or not.
Yeah, that's also a big part of it too. There's a bunch of different facets to it though. So, like I said, I just don't know all of the details about what you get and for the price in this game, and I won't know until I actually throw money at it, so this whole entire point could literally mean nothing at all, frankly. I apologize, guys, but like I said, take it with a grain of salt. It just, from what I'm seeing with the prices for the outfits, it seems really cheap versus other games I've played. So, that being said, let's move on to the cons, ladies and gentlemen, and honestly, I don't have too many that are objective negatives. The first one is going to be the game's performance, which is, well, it's a little inconsistent. The frame rate and the server connection, which server connection is kind of just expected at this point to me in a free-to-play game, but frame rate definitely just doesn't, I don't know, frame rate doesn't completely hang up on me like it does in Vindictus, but every now and again Soulworker just tends to have a reduced and slower frame rate until it bounces right back to a more stable area. Now, it could just be my PC, but it's worth mentioning. And as for connection, I've been completely disconnected from Tenebrous server NA a number of times for seemingly no goddamn reason whatsoever. Although I feel there's a direct correlation here between sitting in the character creation screen for too long or the main menu, and then it just disconnects you the moment that you try to connect to the server after sitting there long enough, which isn't entirely unheard of for free-to-play games. Another objective con that I thought about earlier that I don't have written on here, so I'm really just going with this one by ear and hoping that I say it right and don't drown on for fucking ever, is the lack of just clarity with character creation. I would have liked to know what my character actually does. I still am unsure about what Stella does, her fine mechanics, later on, and not enough people make videos on the game to be able to describe this. I don't know what things will be doing what, and what I should be expecting playstyle-wise from any of my characters in this game, and I'm not going to until I go through the game, so I could waste hours on this game, leveling up to the cap, which I believe is level 65 right now, and not fucking like my character at all. I might not like any of the characters. I might like all of them, let's go on both ends of the spectrum there, but there is just no clarity that tells you anything about what to expect from the characters, how well they deal with AoE, etc. It's just nothing that tells you anything there. The only other objective con that I have is that the game just seems kind of deserted, at least in the places that I have personally been to and at this particular time, even if there's a new character event. I feel like this is one of those MMO games where leveling up is almost purely a solo experience since everyone is already waiting at the cap. This kind of experience can absolutely ruin a newbie in an MMO game because they had little to no experience with groups until they hit end game. And this frustrates veterans because you don't have experience when you jump into the run, and it's also going to frustrate you because the learning curve is a really steep slope, and it just sucks. Trust me, I've been in this situation in too many MMO games, I can tell you what it feels like. This is just speculation at this point, so I may be wrong, but I have a strong feeling that this is probably the case. A lot of I got tongue-tied there, apologize. A lot of MMO games these days are like employers in America. No one will hire you because you don't have experience, yet you need to get hired in order to get the experience. It's a fucking catch-22, and the correlations are sad. It's so fucking true, though, in MMO games. And the rest of the cons that I have beyond this point with this game are really just subjective. They really are. At least from what I can gather, the hero system and the gender locking can be a turnoff, the instant-style combat is a possible con, the emphasis on story, the obvious anime theme, the art style, and literally any of the content in the game I haven't gotten to, or any of the fucking mechanics in the game can be a con, depending on your viewpoint. Again, all subjective, though. So, my suggestion here, ladies and gentlemen, is that overall, the game does seem pretty solid and is worth taking a look at if anything about it made you raise an ear during this video. Do yourself a favor, though, and play with a buddy while you go through this. I could say the generic phrase, it's fun with friends, but as Critical once said, literally anything is fun with friends, and goddammit, he's right. Having a buddy, however, is going to help you get through the grind portion of the game faster so you can see the good shit. Since, honestly, this game doesn't really look like it's going to be getting any, good anytime soon. Until I get to the end of the progression, damn near level capped. So, that being said, anyway, guys, I'm gonna cut off here. I'm starting to fuck up the script horribly. Thank you for listening to this nonsense, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next impression. Who knows? Maybe it'll be shorter than this. It probably won't be, so don't get your hopes up.